My name is Callista, and the night everything changed started with a single word, late. Don't wait up, Gavin said as he adjusted his tie in the hallway mirror. His reflection looked crisp, polished, respectable. He kissed my forehead with the same absent-minded affection you give to an old habit. Big project. Might be midnight before I'm home. It should have been ordinary. He had said it before. But something in the way his eyes slid past mine left me colder than the autumn rain beating on the window. He left. The door clicked shut. The silence that followed was heavier than his absence. For 2 years, Gavin had been the man I trusted with everything, my future, my heart, even my share of the rent. We built a life in that apartment brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck. I thought I knew him better than I knew myself. But that night, the word late became a wedge. A splinter. A quiet crack in the foundation. I poured myself tea, tried to read, scrolled through my phone. But I could not ignore the echo of his voice. The way he emphasized the word late, like he was rehearsing it. At 9, I texted him, "How's the project?" No reply. At 10, another, "Don't forget to eat something." Still nothing. At 11, I dialed. Straight to voicemail. I sat in the living room with the lamp casting yellow light across our framed photos. Gavin with his arm around me at my sister's wedding. Gavin raising a toast on New Year's Eve. Gavin holding me on the balcony as fireworks exploded. Images of forever, or so I thought. The minutes dragged, heavy and sharp. By midnight, the tea in my cup was cold, and so was the hope that his story made sense. Something inside me snapped. A quiet decision formed, would not sit here like a shadow waiting for crumbs of attention. I grabbed my coat, slipped my phone into my pocket, and stepped into the storm. The city felt alive, pulsing with secrets. I knew where Gavin's office was. I had dropped him off countless times. I told myself I was just checking. Just reassuring myself that my doubts were foolish. But when I arrived, the building was dark. Empty. Not a single car in the lot. His project, his excuse, his midnight homecoming, all of it was smoke. I should have turned back. I should have gone home. But the night had teeth, and it bit down on my resolve. I thought of his coworker Morgan. The way her laugh lingered too long at company dinners. The way she once texted him during our anniversary, claiming it was about files. I remembered how quickly he turned his screen away when her name popped up. A suspicion formed so sharp it almost cut me. He's not working late. He's with her. I followed the only trail I had. Morgan's apartment was across town. Gavin had mentioned it once, offhand, when she hosted a work barbecue. My hands trembled on the wheel as I drove, headlights slicing through the rain. When I pulled up outside, the building glowed warm against the storm. I killed the engine and stared at the row of windows. My heart slammed against my ribs. And then I saw it. Through a second-floor curtain, barely drawn, a shadow moved. A man's silhouette, jacket discarded, tie loose. A woman's laugh drifted into the night, muffled but unmistakable. I stepped out into the rain, every drop hitting me like proof. I moved closer, hugging the wall of the building. I looked up again, and froze. It was Gavin. In her apartment. In her arms. My body went numb. The lie was no longer a suspicion. It was flesh and blood, lips and hands, betrayal in its most intimate form. I staggered back to my car, drenched, shaking, the taste of iron on my tongue. He had not just worked late. He had built a second life behind my back. And in that moment, under the storm, something inside me hardened. He thought he had me fooled. He thought I was too emotional, too trusting, too blind. He had no idea what I would become when I decided to fight back. The storm raged on. And I started planning. When I woke the next morning, my pillow was still damp from the rain I had carried in. The storm outside had passed, but the storm inside me had only just begun. Gavin slipped in at 7, smelling faintly of someone else's perfume. He leaned down, kissed the top of my head like a husband who had worked late, and said, "Sorry I missed dinner." His voice was casual. Too casual. I kept my eyes closed, heart pounding with the effort of pretending to sleep. Because now, I knew. And if I wanted to end this, I needed more than anger. I needed proof. That morning, after he left for work, I sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and pen. I wrote 3 words across the top: timeline of lies. The first entry, midnight, Morgan's apartment. Gavin present. It was not enough. I needed a trail he could not wriggle out of, a chain of evidence too heavy for excuses. So I started small. I checked our shared bank account. My stomach clenched as I scrolled. Dinner charges at restaurants I had never been to. Boutique shops in neighborhoods I had never visited. Hotel transactions for conference rates in cities Gavin had never traveled to for work. Each line was a betrayal written in numbers. I copied them all into my notebook. Dates, times, amounts. Next to each I left space for what I would later uncover. Then I checked his phone. Not by guessing, by watching. That night, Gavin left it charging on the nightstand while he showered. My hands shook as I lifted it. His passcode had always been his mother's birthday. It still was. The screen lit up with a flood of notifications. Texts from Morgan. Not just about files. Not just about work. Messages that left no room for denial. Last night was worth every second. When will she catch on? Tonight again? I screenshotted everything, sending them quietly to my email. Every word was another brick in the wall I was building around him. But what shook me most were the photos. Candid snapshots of dinners, of wine glasses, of hotel beds. Gavin smiling in ways he hadn't smiled with me in months. His arm around her shoulders in the same way he once held me at fireworks. I nearly dropped the phone. My throat tightened, but I forced the tears back. This was not the time to fall apart. This was the time to collect. The notebook grew. Every day, I added something new. Receipts tucked into his jacket pockets. A necklace box hidden in his drawer, the tag still attached. A hotel key card slipped between papers in his briefcase. At night, I lay beside him in bed, listening to the even rhythm of his breath, wondering how many lies one man could stack before the weight crushed him. But I was not only watching him. I was learning the pattern of Morgan too. She posted photos on social media, wine glasses, city lights, cryptic captions like "best nights are stolen nights." She never tagged Gavin, but sometimes, in the corner of a frame, I caught the sleeve of a jacket I knew too well. I saved them all. Screenshots, timestamps, cross-references with our bank account. The net was tightening. Yet the evidence was not enough. I knew Gavin. He was slippery. He would call me dramatic. Emotional. He would say I misread everything. He would spin lies until truth sounded like fiction. So I told myself one thing: when I confront him, I will not be alone. The first person I reached out to was my sister, Elena. I invited her for coffee and slid the notebook across the table. She read in silence, eyes widening with each page. "Callista," she whispered finally, this is ironclad. "I am not ready to confront him yet," I said. "I want to know how deep it goes." Her jaw tightened. "Then I will help you." Together, we began watching. Gavin thought his lies were invisible. But with 2 sets of eyes, they became glaring. One night, Elena followed him after work. She called me from her car, voice steady but sharp. "He is not going to the office. He is pulling into Morgan's building." I wrote it down. Another entry in the timeline. Days passed. The notebook swelled. My email folder filled with screenshots. Elena started calling it the Book of Truth. The strangest part was how calm I felt. The more evidence I collected, the less I cried. Each proof was a thread I could wrap around Gavin, binding him tighter to the truth he had tried to bury. But then, one night, as I closed the notebook and placed it back in my drawer, Gavin appeared in the doorway. His eyes narrowed. "What are you writing all the time?" My pulse jumped. "Just work notes," I said. "Deadlines." He studied me for a long second, then smirked. "You always were a little obsessive." He kissed my cheek and walked away, humming. I sat frozen, the notebook warm under my hand. Because in that moment, I realized how close I was playing to the edge. If he ever saw what I had gathered, my plan would unravel before it began. And yet, I could not stop. Because I knew this story would not end in whispers. It would end with the truth spoken so loudly he could never silence it again. The night Gavin almost caught me with the notebook changed everything. I realized I could not carry this fight alone. If he grew suspicious, he would twist the story before I had the chance to reveal it. He had always been a master of performance. To beat him, I needed witnesses who could not be swayed by charm. I started with Elena, of course, but she insisted we expand. "If it is just you and me," she warned, "he will say you dragged me into your obsession. You need others. Neutral eyes. People he cannot dismiss." Her words sank into me like stones. She was right. Gavin's greatest weapon was always doubt. He would smile, he would joke, he would make me seem fragile. I needed evidence, but also people who had seen enough to believe. So I reached out to Clara, my oldest friend from college, now a paralegal. She knew how to look at documents, how to connect dates, how to see patterns most people missed. We met in her tiny apartment one Saturday morning. I laid the receipts, screenshots, and timelines across her kitchen table. She moved methodically, lips pressed thin. When she finished, she looked up and said simply, "He is cooked. You could take this to court right now." My stomach twisted. I am not ready for court. Not yet. This is not just about leaving him. It is about making sure he can never gaslight me again. Not me. Not anyone. Clara leaned back, crossing her arms. Then you need a plan bigger than evidence. You need timing. Precision. And someone in authority who will stand with you. Her words planted a seed I had not dared imagine. Authority. Not just friends, not just family. Someone official. That night, I called Elena again. "We need legal cover," I said. "Not just proof, but a way to present it that he cannot twist." "Who?" she asked. "An attorney. Someone who understands contracts and marriage law." Through Clara, we found one, Mr. Bennett, calm, deliberate, a man who had seen dozens of husbands try to bury women under charm. I sat in his office, palms sweating as I slid the notebook across his desk. He read silently for a long time, occasionally making small notes on a legal pad. Finally, he looked at me. "You have something rare," he said. "A trail so clear it leaves no room for debate. But if you want this to stick, you must choose how you wield it. Divorce? Civil claim? Or exposure?" The word exposure rang in my ears. Because that was the heart of it. I did not want only to leave Gavin. I wanted him unmasked. I want him to face what he did. Publicly. No more hiding behind, "She is too emotional," no more twisting. Mr. Bennett nodded. "Then you must be careful. One wrong step, and he will call it slander. But if you build it right, he will have no defense." I walked out of his office trembling, but also lighter. For the first time, I felt the ground shifting beneath Gavin instead of beneath me. Meanwhile, Gavin kept up his charade. Dinners missed. Smiles too wide. Perfume clinging to his shirts. He thought the play was still his to direct. But Elena and I were watching closer than ever. One Thursday evening, she tailed him again. She called me in a whisper. "Callista, I just saw them together at the hotel." Room key in his hand. She kissed him before they went inside. I wrote it down in the timeline. Then I took a screenshot of my call log with Elena's time-stamped call. Another thread. Another stitch. At home, I looked at Gavin across the dinner table. He laughed at some story about his boss keeping him late again. I sipped my wine and smiled like I believed him. Inside, I was stone. Later, while he slept, I updated the notebook. Dates. Times. Witnesses. Screenshots. It was no longer just a record. It was a weapon. But weapons need an audience. That weekend, I met Elena and Clara again. We spread everything across the table. Clara tapped her finger on one particular page, Morgan's posts. "This is your crack in the armor," she said. "She wants to be seen. If you time this right, her vanity will expose him more than you ever could." Elena's eyes lit up. An event. A dinner. Something public. Somewhere he cannot walk away. My pulse quickened. His birthday is coming. He loves throwing dinners with friends. What if that is the stage? We looked at each other, the silence thick with possibility. Elena whispered, "Then that is where we end it." My heart pounded. Because for the first time, I could see it, the moment Gavin's smile faltered, the moment his lies collapsed under the weight of his own arrogance. But the thought was terrifying too. A public confrontation meant risk. What if he twisted it anyway? What if people believed him over me? I closed the notebook and pressed my palm to its cover. Then I need to be ready for every possible turn. Because once I stepped onto that stage, there would be no going back. Once the idea of Gavin's birthday dinner took root, I could not shake it. He loved attention. He loved being the center of every table. What better place to pull the mask off than the stage he built for himself? But I also knew this could not be sloppy. If I stumbled, he would twist it. If I lashed out in anger, he would call me unstable. I needed precision. Elena, Clara, and I met in secret, planning like generals before a battle. Elena's living room became our war room. The notebook sat in the center of the coffee table, its pages filled with dates, receipts, screenshots, and names. "Step 1, Clara said, tapping the notebook, is to secure allies at the dinner itself. Not just us. People who will back you in real time." "Like who?" I asked. "His boss," she said. "He trusts Gavin, but if he hears the truth directly, he cannot dismiss it. Maybe a mutual friend, someone who has seen the cracks." Elena leaned forward. "I can bring Rachel. She never trusted him. She will not stay quiet if she hears proof." I nodded, heart racing. "So we plant allies at the table. And then?" Clara smiled. "Then you control the flow of information. No shouting match. No scene. Just truth dropped piece by piece until he cannot breathe under it." That night, I drafted a script. Not word for word, but key lines. Questions I would ask. Screenshots I would read. Receipts I would slide across the table. Each one timed, each one layered so Gavin could not escape. But the plan required something more, timing. Gavin's birthday dinner always followed the same rhythm. Drinks first. Toasts. Stories. Then he would rise, grinning, to give his thank you speech. That was when I would strike. Mr. Bennett, the attorney, was cautious. "Make sure you have backup copies. Hard drives, emails, cloud storage. If he tries to say you fabricated anything, you must have undeniable records." "I already do," I said. "Multiple places." "Good," he said. "Then be calm." Calm unnerves men like him more than rage. The week of the dinner, Gavin was almost giddy. He ordered wine, picked a suit, even practiced lines in the mirror about how grateful he was for another year of blessings. I watched him and thought, your blessings are about to run out. Still, fear crept in. What if Morgan showed up? What if Gavin found the notebook before then? I double-locked drawers, carried my backup drive in my bag everywhere. Elena sensed my nerves. He is arrogant, she reminded me. He thinks you are still in the dark. That is your weapon. He has no idea you are already holding the knife. The day of the dinner arrived. Gavin kissed me on the cheek before leaving early to finalize reservations. His phone buzzed right after. I glanced down. A message preview from Morgan, can't wait to see you after. Save me a slice of cake. I nearly laughed out loud. He was planning to eat dinner with me, then sneak to her after. The arrogance of it gave me strength. That evening, I dressed deliberately, simple but striking, a dark red dress Gavin used to say made me look intense. I wanted intense. I wanted unforgettable. At the restaurant, guests mingled with wine glasses in hand. I greeted Rachel, squeezing her hand in silent thanks for coming. Clara slipped in unnoticed, positioning herself near Gavin's boss. Elena gave me a nod across the room. The pieces were falling into place. When Gavin arrived, the room erupted in applause. He bowed like an actor, kissed my hand, and whispered, "You planned this perfectly, love." I smiled. Not yet. But I will. Dinner unfolded smoothly. Gavin laughed too loudly at his own jokes, soaking up attention. The allies I had planted listened carefully, watching him with new eyes. Finally, the cake appeared. Candles flickered. Gavin tapped his glass, rising for his speech. "Thank you," he began, "for being part of my journey. I could never do this without Callista by my side." He gestured at me, pretending tenderness. And that was my cue. I stood, the room falling quiet. "Actually," I said, my voice steady, "there are a few things everyone here should know." Gasps. Forks froze midair. Gavin blinked, startled. "Callista," he said softly, "what are you doing?" I lifted the notebook. Telling the truth. The room buzzed with whispers. His boss leaned forward. Rachel's eyes lit with fire. Elena's phone camera was already recording. And as Gavin's confident smile faltered, I realized, for the first time in years, I was not afraid of him. The room went silent in a way I will never forget. Wine glasses hovered midair, forks rested untouched on plates, and every eye shifted from Gavin's smug smile to the notebook in my hands. "Callista," he said, forcing a laugh, "you are embarrassing yourself. Sit down." I didn't. Instead, I opened the notebook slowly, like a priest opening scripture. "You want to talk about gratitude, Gavin? Let's start with honesty." His face twitched, but he kept his grin. "This is not the time." "It is exactly the time," I replied. I flipped to the first page, held up a receipt. "Do you all know where our rent money went in March?" "Because it didn't go to the landlord." Gasps rippled through the table. Gavin reached for the notebook, but I pulled it back. "It went to the Rosalind Inn," I continued, my voice steady. "Room 214. For 2 nights. Paid in cash." His boss frowned, leaning forward. "Gavin, what is she talking about?" Gavin raised both hands, chuckling nervously. "She is overreacting. You know how Callista gets, emotional." That word. Emotional. It hit me like a match to gasoline. I turned the page and read aloud, "Morgan, thank you for the roses. Next time, bring that cologne I like." Rachel gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Elena's phone camera caught every word, every shift in the room's energy. Gavin tried again, louder this time. "This is ridiculous. You are twisting things. Morgan is just a colleague." "Really?" I interrupted. "Because I have receipts showing you took her to dinner 5 times last month alone. And these," I held up printed screenshots, "are her messages, all sent during nights you told me you were working late." I read one aloud, my voice cutting through his protests. I love when you fall asleep next to me. Callista has no idea. The silence that followed was devastating. Even the servers froze. Clara, seated near Gavin's boss, leaned in and whispered something. His boss's jaw clenched, his face darkening by the second. Enough. Gavin shouted, slamming his fist on the table. Candles flickered. This is my birthday. You do not get to humiliate me like this. I met his fury with calm. You did that yourself. He lunged for the notebook, but Rachel stood. Sit down, Gavin. Her voice was sharp as glass. I always suspected something was wrong. Now we all see it. His face turned crimson. He pointed at me, shaking. You planned this. You're trying to destroy me. I raised my chin. No, Gavin. I'm just showing everyone what you already destroyed. The room erupted into whispers. His boss spoke at last, voice heavy. We'll discuss this Monday. Privately. Gavin deflated, his arrogance leaking away like air from a punctured balloon. He looked around, searching for an ally, but all he found were eyes filled with disgust and disappointment. I closed the notebook slowly, deliberately. I'm not finished, I said. The tension was unbearable. Even Elena, behind her camera, swallowed hard. Gavin's voice cracked. What else could you possibly have? I met his gaze. The kind of proof that makes sure you can't talk your way out of this ever again. And as I slid the notebook back into my bag, leaving the room desperate for what came next, Gavin's confident facade crumbled completely. I thought my plan was flawless. Every message was timed, every file prepared, every detail arranged like a stage set. But real life loves to shove its own script into your hands. The night of the confrontation began with a silence that felt louder than music. The restaurant was full, glasses clinking, silverware chiming against porcelain. Damon sat across from me, smiling that easy smile he had perfected for strangers. He thought I had finally stopped asking questions. He thought I was still the woman who let working late explain everything. But as the wine arrived, my phone buzzed. A message from my lawyer. He is not alone. She is there. Do you want to proceed? For a moment my throat tightened. I had expected rage, excuses, maybe even denial. I had not expected him to drag her here, the woman from the apartment, the one he had sworn was just a client. I looked up, and there she was. Entering the room in a red dress too bold for coincidence. She walked with the confidence of someone who believed she was the secret no one could touch. Damon's eyes flicked toward her, just a flash, but enough. Enough to confirm everything. Enough to make me breathe deeper and steadier than I had all month. This was the pivot. The moment the plan could break or sharpen. I leaned in, soft voice. You promised me tonight would be ours. He chuckled. It is, darling. Just relax. Relax. That word again. The word he used when I caught him hiding receipts. The word he used when I asked why he smelled of a perfume I did not own. The word that meant, stop looking, stay small. But I did not stop. I lifted my glass, keeping my eyes on him as my lawyer's message delivered the second wave, file sent to every guest. Wait for reactions. Around the room, phones lit up one by one. Screens glowed with the documents I had collected, his hotel bookings, his late-night texts, even the lease signed with her name beside his. Guests shifted in their seats, whispers spreading like fire through dry grass. Damon noticed. His smile faltered. What's going on? Before I could answer, the woman in red approached the table. She leaned down, hand on his shoulder. You didn't tell me she'd be here. Gasps rippled through the nearby tables. My fork rested gently on the plate. Actually, I said calmly, I invited her. She deserved a front row seat. Damon's face drained of color. This is ridiculous, he stammered, voice cracking. These files are fake. She's emotional. Enough, I cut in, steady and cold. The room has the truth now. You can't out-talk evidence. And then, as if the universe wanted to add its own stamp, the restaurant manager appeared at our table holding a printed letter. This was delivered for Mr. Damon earlier, he said. Damon snatched it, but I already knew what it was. The legal notice from my attorney, confirming the formal review of his finances and his double life. The room had turned. People were no longer whispering, they were watching. His charm, his easy grin, none of it worked anymore. He tried to speak, but no one leaned in to listen. That was the pivot. My plan had survived the unexpected. And now, his unraveling had begun in public, exactly where he thought he was safest. The sound of cutlery scraping against plates faded as if the whole room agreed to hold its breath. Damon sat rigid, the woman in red behind him like a shadow that had finally stepped into the light. His lips moved, trying to form words, but nothing came out. I rose slowly, not rushing, letting every pair of eyes in the restaurant fix on me. My hands were steady. My voice was clear. For months, I began, my fiancé told me he was working late. For months, I believed him, because trust is supposed to be the foundation of love. Tonight, you've all seen the documents. Tonight, you've seen the truth. I glanced at Damon. His jaw clenched. Stop this, he hissed under his breath. But I didn't stop. I lifted my phone, projecting the screen onto the small presentation display the restaurant used for private events. Line after line of his texts appeared in white bubbles against a dark background. I'll be home late, babe. Just at the office. She suspects nothing. Don't text me tonight. We'll celebrate our anniversary at the apartment instead. Gasps filled the air. The words glared in neon clarity, undeniable. The woman in red crossed her arms. You told me you were separated, she snapped at him, loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. You told me she was out of the picture. Damon reached for her hand, desperate. She yanked it away. The audience of diners was no longer neutral. They were engaged, leaning closer, phones lifted to capture the unfolding disaster. Look at him, I said, voice rising just enough. He spent our rent money on her. He lied to me, he lied to her, and he lied to every single one of you who thought he was a man worth respecting. Damon slammed his fist against the table. You're destroying me. No, I said firmly. You destroyed yourself. I'm just pulling the curtain back. The manager of the restaurant returned, uneasy but resolute. Ma'am, do you want us to call security? I shook my head. No. Let him stay. Let him feel every second of this. The woman in red backed away, arms wrapped around herself, muttering, I can't believe this. She stumbled toward the exit, ignoring Damon's frantic whisper, wait, I'll explain. She didn't stop. The door closed behind her with a sound sharper than glass breaking. I turned back to the crowd. He mocked me. He drained me. He thought I'd stay quiet because I'm just one woman. But silence is over. And then I read the final line of evidence, the bank transfer marked in his name, the one that showed exactly where our rent money went. The screen displayed the amount, the date, and her initials in bold. The room erupted. Some diners shook their heads in disgust. Others whispered furiously, recording every second. The perfect image Damon had built, the charming, hard-working man, collapsed in real time. He pushed his chair back, face twisted with fury. You think this will ruin me? You think anyone cares? At that exact moment, my lawyer entered the restaurant, briefcase in hand. He nodded at me, then addressed the room. Ladies and gentlemen, my client has filed the formal papers. This evidence will also be presented in court. Mr. Damon will have plenty of chances to explain himself, under oath. The silence that followed was thunderous. Damon's skin turned pale. He looked like a man who had just realized the ground beneath him was gone. And then, as the lawyer placed the papers on the table, Damon whispered, almost too low to hear, "You'll regret this." I leaned close enough so only he could hear my reply. "The only thing I regret is waiting this long." The cameras kept rolling. The diners kept watching. And Damon? He had nowhere left to hide. The restaurant was no longer a restaurant. It had transformed into a courtroom, a theater, and a battlefield all at once. Forks lay abandoned, wine glasses sat untouched, and every head turned toward Damon, who looked as if the walls themselves were closing in on him. He stammered, words tripping over each other. It's not what it looks like." But no one wanted to hear excuses. Diners whispered furiously, cameras in their hands glowing like small, merciless spotlights. The evidence was projected for everyone to see. His texts, his bank transfers, his trail of lies. One older man at a nearby table shook his head. "I thought you were one of the good ones, Damon," he muttered loudly enough for others to hear. Another woman leaned toward me. "Honey, you're brave. Don't let him twist this back on you." Damon's face flushed crimson. He tried to grab the papers my lawyer had laid on the table, but the lawyer calmly slid them out of reach. "Those are official documents," he said evenly. "If you touch them, it becomes evidence tampering." The room gasped again. Damon froze, his hand mid-air, before letting it drop limply against his thigh. I stayed standing, spine straight, voice steady. "You lied to me. You lied to her. You used me like an ATM while you played house in someone else's bed. You thought I wouldn't find out. You thought I wouldn't fight back." He pointed at me, eyes wild. "You're ruining me, Celeste." I met his fury with calm. "No, Damon. You ruined yourself. I'm just letting the truth speak." The restaurant manager stepped forward again. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." But Damon refused. "No. This is my life, my reputation. She doesn't get to take it all from me." His voice cracked, and for the first time, I saw fear drowning his arrogance. The woman in red had already left, but her absence screamed louder than her presence ever could. The door still seemed to echo with her departure. He was utterly alone, and the crowd knew it. Then something unexpected happened. A young man in a waiter's uniform, maybe no older than 20, cleared his throat. "I've seen him here before," he said hesitantly. "Always with her. Never with you." His voice trembled, but his words struck like a hammer. The room erupted again, murmurs, shocked gasps, a few harsh laughs. Damon's shoulders sagged, and his mask slipped completely. My lawyer raised his voice just enough to cut through the chaos. "Everyone here is a witness to what was shown tonight. Screenshots will be filed with the case. If Mr. Damon wishes to deny this in court, he will be doing so under oath." The weight of that sentence pressed down harder than any judgment from strangers. Damon's bravado drained out of him. He sank into his chair, staring at the table as if it could swallow him whole. I took a deep breath and said clearly, "This is not revenge. This is justice. And justice doesn't whisper, it speaks where everyone can hear." The diners clapped. Not all of them, but enough that the sound carried like a verdict. A few even stood. Damon flinched as if each clap was a stone thrown his way. His phone buzzed on the table. He grabbed it desperately, only to see notification after notification flashing across the screen, social media posts, news spreading faster than he could control. His double life wasn't just ending in this room. It was unraveling everywhere. And then, his phone rang. The name glowing on the screen made his face collapse. It was his boss. The diners noticed. The whispers turned sharper. He didn't answer. He couldn't. His hands shook too much. I leaned closer, low enough for only him to hear. "This is the beginning, Damon. Tomorrow, the world will know who you really are." He looked up at me, eyes burning, his voice hoarse. "If you think this is over, you're wrong." The room went silent again, waiting, sensing the storm wasn't done. Morning light spilled across my kitchen table, but it felt harsher than usual, like the world itself was reminding me that nothing would ever be the same again. My phone buzzed non-stop. Messages. Missed calls. Notifications stacked higher than I could count. Friends I hadn't heard from in months were texting, "Are you okay?" Strangers on social media were tagging me in clips of last night. The restaurant confrontation had gone viral. Someone had uploaded it within an hour. Now millions had seen Damon exposed in real time. The headlines were brutal. Local executive confronted over double life. Anniversary dinner turns into public reckoning. Businessman's reputation crumbles after mistress walks out. I scrolled through comments, heart pounding. Some praised me for my courage. Others dissected every detail, debating whether my actions were calculated genius or pure heartbreak in motion. Either way, I was no longer invisible. Damon, on the other hand, was everywhere for the wrong reasons. His company issued a statement before noon, effective immediately: Damon Calloway has been placed on leave pending review. I could practically hear his world collapsing. His boss had seen the evidence live on his phone, and corporate couldn't ignore the scandal once it spread beyond dinner tables and into boardrooms. But it wasn't just his job. His mistress, or rather, his other partner, posted a single message online. 6 words. I was lied to as well. Attached was a picture of her removing a framed photo from her living room wall. The internet feasted on it. The narrative was no longer Damon's to spin. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt a strange mix of calm and exhaustion. Justice wasn't as loud inside as it was outside. It was quiet. Like finally exhaling after holding my breath for too long. By afternoon, my lawyer called. His tone was brisk but satisfied. "We're filing today. With everything that came out last night, Damon won't stand a chance if he tries to fight. The witnesses, the public record, the video, it's airtight." "What happens now?" I asked. "We let the court do its work," he said. "And you live your life without carrying his lies anymore." That sounded simple. It wasn't. When betrayal has eaten into every corner of your life, it doesn't vanish overnight. I still had to close our shared bank account, cancel utilities in his name, and sort through the wreckage of what I thought was love. Yet every time I hesitated, I remembered the look on his face when the clapping started in that restaurant. A man who believed he was untouchable finally realizing the walls weren't made of stone, they were paper, and truth had set them on fire. That evening, I walked past the restaurant again. The lights were dim, the tables empty. But in my mind, I still heard the gasp when the first text lit the screen. I still saw the way strangers stood for me, not because they knew me, but because truth makes people want to stand. And then my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a notification. It was a voicemail alert. "Damon." His voice crackled through the speaker, hoarse and broken. "You think you've won, Celeste. But you don't know what this will cost you. People will talk. They'll pick apart everything you've done. You'll regret dragging this out into the open. Trust me, you'll regret it." My stomach tightened. Not because I feared him, but because I realized he still didn't understand. This wasn't about destroying him. It was about reclaiming me. I deleted the voicemail without saving it. Then I whispered to the empty room, "The only one who should regret anything is you." But even as I spoke, I knew Damon wasn't finished. And neither was I. The voicemail should have rattled me. A few months earlier, it would have. I would have replayed it 100 times, wondering if Damon was right, if I had gone too far, if maybe I should have kept my pain hidden. But now? Now it sounded like static. Empty words from a man who had built his whole life on lies and expected me to stay silent for his comfort. The truth is, people did talk. For weeks after the dinner, whispers followed me. Colleagues asked careful questions. Neighbors gave me long looks. Online, strangers debated whether I was brave or cruel. And yes, sometimes I felt exposed, like my heart had been pinned to a bulletin board for everyone to inspect. But here's the difference, I was free. Free of Damon's excuses. Free of checking his stories against reality. Free of wondering who he really was when he wasn't with me. The court process moved quickly. My lawyer was right. Damon's double life had left a paper trail so wide you could drive a truck through it. The joint account records, the receipts from hotels, the messages that went public, none of it could be denied. Within weeks, the judgment was clear. He was ordered to repay what he had stolen, and his professional misconduct became part of his permanent record. The same man who once laughed at me for being too emotional now sat in hearings where his voice cracked, his hands shook, and his reputation unraveled in front of him. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The system was doing what it was supposed to do, and I simply had to stand steady and tell the truth. One afternoon, after court, I walked out of the building and felt sunlight hit my face. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was walking in Damon's shadow. I wasn't someone's secret, someone's backup plan, someone's burden to manage. I was just me. Celeste. And that was enough. Friends who had once tiptoed around me began reaching out again. My sister, who had been furious at me for staying with Damon so long, hugged me tight and said, "I'm proud of you for leaving on your own terms." Even my parents, who worried about how this would look, admitted they had underestimated my strength. And then there was the unexpected. Messages from women I didn't know, writing things like, "Your story gave me courage," or "I realized I don't have to put up with his lies anymore." That was when it hit me. My revenge wasn't just about Damon. It was about proving something larger, that silence protects the wrong people, and speaking up shifts the balance. Do I still think about him? Sometimes. Not with longing, not with rage. With clarity. Damon was a chapter one had to close to find my own voice again. He gambled with my love and my future. He lost. I walked away not with bitterness, but with proof that when you stop accepting less, you make space for more. Tonight, as I sit here recording this story for you, I can still see the restaurant lights in my memory, the gasps when the truth broke free, the way Damon's mask crumbled before everyone's eyes. That moment wasn't about humiliation. It was about justice. About reclaiming the dignity he tried to strip away from me piece by piece. So if you are listening right now and carrying your own doubts, let me leave you with this: you are not wrong for noticing. You are not crazy for asking questions. And you are never too emotional for demanding respect. Those are the very instincts that will save you. Damon's lies ended that night. My life began again the next morning. And yours? Yours can begin the moment you decide the truth matters more than his story. If you felt something in this story, leave a comment, tell me where you are listening from, or share your own moment of courage. Because this isn't just my revenge story, it's a reminder that the truth always has more power than the lie. And believe me, the right people will clap for you when you finally decide to speak.